Back to session 2 of day 4. Wow, we're breezing through the week, but it is an intensive week. I know I'm feeling it, so I imagine that many of you also are. Um, and it's just so much new content material, but also just a whole new way of thinking, right? And that's really the beauty of the Nalanda Debate tradition, is that it gives us a new way of thinking. And so that's what this analysis, this way of talking about the joints of reasoning, that is precisely an example of that, right? Getting yourselves to think about things in a new way. And look at how we had a perfect example when, sorry, I forgot his name, but someone came up and suggested, well, what about an animal as a common ground for a, what was it, dog and category. So there's a common ground, but that's different from what we mean by common ground here. So common ground would be something which is both a cat and a dog, like the cartoon character Cat Dog. If any of you, um, maybe in this my generation and from the United States might be familiar with that. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's now just go over. Oh, thank you, Swagath, for coming. So Swagath is going to help us go through a little bit of content this session. And I'm going to just make sure the stream is running properly, so bear with me. So far, it looks like it is. Okay, let me just, I have to, yeah, no, it's fine. Okay, perfect. So that's working. So now clear. Okay, everybody can hear me, I hope. If not, then you'll say something. So, now what are we going to do in this session? So, Swagath and I will go through a little bit of material. But, we have a lecture notes that we sent out, and everyone should have those. I'll just show you that sheet briefly on the sharing screen. Okay, so this is day 4.2, DWS day 4.2, debate, discovery, and knowledge. Now, we're not going to go through all of these notes. So we really prepared this, not quite sure where people would be at and what you'd be most interested in. It's quite theoretical. It really kind of takes a step back and kind of the bird's eye view of some of what's going on in the logic. And it really is kind of focused more on the Pramanavartika, right? The text and the literature surrounding the text that really goes into the science of logic, right? The functioning of logic, what's happening when we make syllogisms, kind of in the, what are the intricacies of it all. So we're not going to go into all the detail there. It just doesn't seem that important right now. So we'll rush through it and highlight a couple of points. But then really what we're going to spend more time on is the exercise, which I will again share my screen to make sure you all have the document. This exercise is called Day 4.2, Drill 1, Translating Colloquial into Nalanda Debate. Okay, so that's going to be kind of really, I think, interesting for a lot of you and a little bit and quite fun even. And also, there was like kind of a request that came up in the WhatsApp group for, to present a debate and give an example of a debate related to social issues. So this document will sort of naturally lead into that, and we'll kind of go into detail about how that works just shortly. And then, because we're going to breeze through this lecture notes and just kind of touch on it, then hopefully we'll have time to go over a little bit more of the debate outline, because it seems like a lot of the questions that are coming up are, what's with this, definition, what's with this category, what's, this and that. So traditionally, this kind of debate is practiced. It's never taught as a standalone skill or like a lesson even, right? Debate is always taught in the context of This is content, this is a subject, a lesson that we're going through. For instance, math, we debate it as our study technique, right? So in this course, this workshop, since we have such a short time and we're trying to really allow or anything, but just to get the skills so you can apply this debate to any background is why we're yes, can everybody hear me clearly? Is there the Swagat has put in the text. So maybe raise your hand. Yes, good. Okay. All right, thumbs up. Thank you. So maybe Swagat, don't know if he can hear me, but hopefully that will work out. Okay, so that's the thing is like we in a normal setting, like we wouldn't just give you this outline and say go debate it, right? We would walk through it and explain it. I mean it's a little bit different. Yeah, because the way the texts are oriented, actually it takes you through debates. That's normally how people study debate in the context where this is traditionally or normally taught. You have a text that actually just has written out debates, short kind of pithy debates, and the teacher will guide the students through the debate. And then you get to the section where it just posits a bunch of definitions, and then there is a section, in the text like that. And then the teacher will sort of raise interesting questions and say, okay, well, what about this and that? And you kind of try and pry it apart. You kind of find if there's any kind of, inconsistencies in there. And that's what the students get as their kind of guidance for what to debate on. And also the joints of reasoning is as another kind of general rule of thumb that you can use to just debate about anything. It can be a good starting point for a debate. You just say, well, you want to know about, you're looking at cosmology, and you say, okay, well, what's the relation, right? What is the difference? Can you posit? It follows you can posit the difference between, let's say, um, an entity with gravity and a celestial body that has gravity and a celestial body that emits light, say, right? In terms of three joints, four joints, equivalence, and contradiction. And there you go. Now you have a way to jump into the question. Okay, what's the relation between bodies with gravity and bodies that emit light? Okay, so there's you could use it for any kind of subject of inquiry. Okay, so not to waste any more time. Oh, Swagat, are you able to hear me, or maybe need to check in? Maybe he is having some issue with his audio. No, okay, you're here. Can you come up on stage? Maybe I'll. Hmm. Maybe he's not here. Some of the things on this document, and the main point I want to actually, I'll just kind of go to the slide with the main points that I want to point out. Okay, so we have some kind of complicated stuff, a little bit complicated, interesting if you want to read through it. Certainly, if you go on to study more about logic in this tradition, you will learn about these things. Oh, but let's go down to here. Interactive reasoning. So we really, there's a distinction between internal reasoning and interactive reasoning. Internal reasoning is when you're just thinking, meditating. You're using syllogisms for yourself. Interactive reasoning is what we're doing here. You're using syllogisms to help your opponent clear away their wrong views, their ignorance, and you're helping to establish correct, valid knowledge. So you're interacting, right? Interactive reasoning has two parts, two different kinds of. Here we go. Thank you. Swagat, if you can try and open your mic. So we have I you have straightforward syllogisms, which actually we don't use in when we're debating, even though they're kind of part of the theory of logic and debate. We don't use them when we're debating. What we use then is consequential syllogisms. So now I'm going to go into the example here. We're just going to jump right into, because time is short, this slide here. Okay, Swagat, so now you're with us, perfect timing. So we just ran through like 5 slides that we didn't really say anything about, but that's okay. What we really want to get to is, what's a real world example of using logic, right? Using reasoning, using debate, a syllogism. Okay. Swagath, my friend, we're walking through the woods. We smell
Mm-hmm.
some kind of fragrant fragrant scent coming wafting through the air. We look up and there's this building with this white substance, plumes of this white substance billowing from the top. What would you think when you see this, Swagat?
If it smells particularly nice, I might think that someone is burning some incense.
Mm-hmm. You might think someone's burning some incense. So you look at that building. I mean, first you would smell it, right? But let's pretend you didn't smell it, and you just look at the building, and so now smell is out of the picture. And what would you think?
I would think take that white cloud. It follows, it is smoke because it looks like smoke.
It looks like smoke. So you see smoke. Okay. So you see smoke and you have no doubt that it's smoke, right? So you don't really even need to probably make a syllogism at this point. You just see it and I mean, do you have doubt is there smoke or you just see, oh, that's smoke?
I do have some doubt
Okay.
because it could also be perhaps water vapor
It could
or
be
some sort of chemical fume
some kind of chemical
that's not
fume or water
smoke.
vapor. That because it's you're not sure. Okay, it's white, it's a little white and grayish, maybe it's some other kind of fumes. Okay, good. Well, so then this is what we're getting at, right? There's no one, thought process or piece of knowledge, that everyone universally would get from looking at this scene, right? There's a lot of different things that someone can think. They could look at it, and so as I have written the first one, they could just look at it and immediately think, "Wow, what a nice fire they have going in there. What what happened there?" They saw smoke. They knew immediately it was smoke. They know that wherever there is smoke, there is fire. If something has smoke, it necessarily has fire. That building has smoke, therefore it has fire. They did some internal reasoning. Bam. They know right away what a nice fire they have going in there. Okay? Like Swagat was saying, like there's some doubt though. Like, oh, I wonder what that white stuff is. Actually, it doesn't look that much like smoke to me. So you don't. So here, so what is going on, right? We have this. Let's actually let me go to a slide that lists this as a syllogism. That's not actually the right one because that's the consequence. But just so we can see the three parts. Aha. So here it says Smoky Mountain, but we can say Smoky House. The house with smoke billowing out of the roof chimney. Okay. So just trying to I should make the screen bigger. Okay. Point out, so remember for a reason to be a flawless reason, for syllogism to work, you have a subject, and the subject has to be the reason. So in the smoky, the house billowing smoke, smoke exists, right? So it has to be the reason. If something's the reason, it has to be the predicate. If something is a place where smoke exists, or as another way to say that, meaning it's exactly the same. If something has smoke, if it's a place where smoke exists, if it has smoke, the meaning is exactly the same. I mean, place maybe is a loose word, but if it's a phenomenon in which on which smoke exists, so if it has smoke, it necessarily has fire. So the other thing is, it's not just that it has to be true. The person who's hearing the reason has to know these things. This is the kicker. You have to actually, for it to really work, like really make sense, the person who's hearing the reason, the defender, they have to know that in this house, in this house that's billowing smoke, there is smoke. that house has smoke. If, like Swagat said, I'm not sure that's even smoke, actually. That could be some kind of chemical fume. That might be water vapor. They're not actually the kind of, the perfect defender to be able to hear the reason. Take the subject, the house billowing smoke, it follows it has fire because it has smoke. Why? He's going to say reason not true. He might say reason not true, right? He's not sure. So for the syllogism to work, the defender has to have the knowledge already in the back of his head, already in the back of their head. They have to know what's going on generally for the reason to actually prove the thesis. Okay? So other things you might think, just doubt about the thesis. It seems like there might be fire, not really sure. There's another possibility. So this is kind of, seems maybe a little ridiculous in this context, but let's just say, Swagath, could you imagine a case where, you know, someone told you when you were a young lad, and your, grandmother pulled you up and said, Swagath, brick, or this isn't brick, is it? Stone houses. Stone houses don't have fireplaces. Stone houses can't have fire in them, right? Is that a possible scenario?
Hmm.
Maybe broaden your imagination to think of some other kind of stereotype or some other kind of belief that you could have been taught at some point. So, what would you think then if you come and you see the smoke and you have this belief sort of lodged into your psyche that, well, stone houses, they just don't have fire in them? Then what would you think when you come and see this scene?
Hmm. Then I would think it's probably one of the other two. It's probably water vapor or some other kind of chemical fume, because
Exactly.
certainly it cannot be fire.
It can't be fire. It can't be smoke. It can't be the white stuff. Can't be smoke. It can't be a fire inside the house. So what we're getting at here is that you can have some kind of what we might as well call a cognitive bias, a belief, right? Some kind of belief that actually prevents you from seeing what is right in front of your eyes, from acknowledging or ascertaining what is right in front of your eyes, and then you are not going to be able to hear the reason or apply it properly, right? So no matter how much I say, so then I go over to Swagath and I go, Swagath, hey, there's a fire in there, right? And he goes, what do you say? No.
I say, why?
Why? And I go, well, there's smoke, dude. And you go,
No pervasion.
no pervasion. Right. You might just say no pervasion. So what we can do then, so this is where the consequence becomes a, what do you call it? It really is something that shows you the absurd consequence of the defender's position. So now let's just say I managed to convince you that it's smoke. So I bring you closer and I say, dude, smell that. That's obviously smoke, right? You can smell the smoke. And I mean, smoke has a distinct smell, right? And you go, I mean, you could tell the difference between water vapor and smoke when you smell it, right? So I got,
Hmm. Yeah.
okay. So you smell
I
it
would say,
and you go,
okay, that
okay,
smells like smoke.
that is smoke. You ascertain it's smoke. So now what happens is, what do you have going in your mind? You have knowledge that in the house billowing smoke, there's smoke, right? So you
Hmm.
have that. You have knowledge, and do you know
And I
that
also have this knowledge that certainly there can't be a fire in that house because stone houses don't have fire.
that's the belief, right?
So
That's
there's
the
smoke, but
belief.
it can't have come from fire,
So that's the
is
belief
my
you
are my
have,
beliefs.
one of your
Yeah.
beliefs. So maybe wouldn't call that knowledge. And then you
Okay.
also have, and then you have a basic knowledge, from other background experience, prior experience, that smoke comes from fire, right? I mean, you've probably gone camping
Hmm.
and lit a fire and saw smoke come out, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, cool. So you know that fire produces smoke. Smoke is produced from fire. So you know there's a pervasion, where there's smoke, there's fire. You know that there's smoke in that house, but you still believe that there's no fire in that house because of this other kind of mistaken belief that you learned at some point. So what we can do is then posit a consequence that's phrased slightly differently than we've been phrasing things. So what we would say, it's not true, but it's going to help the defender change his wrong view. So we say, take the subject inside the house billowing smoke. It follows that there is no smoke because there is no fire. So how are you going to answer that?
Why?
So either the reason is not true or no pervasion. Now you can't say no pervasion because you know there's a pervasion, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just kind of stuck here, Donya. I don't know where to go from here.
Right. So you would think the reason is not true, but then that would mean, then it's still getting you to start to think, but then what about this predicate here? You're trying to prove that, I mean, sorry, no, you think the reason is true, right? So that's why it locks you into this kind of position
Hmm.
where you believe there's no fire, so you're not going to say reason's not true. You know that where there is no fire, there's no smoke. So now what happens? You have to let something go. You have to change one of your beliefs. And this is where consequential syllogisms, the logic of consequence, really becomes a consequence of someone's position, right? You go, wait a
Hmm.
minute, how could I believe that there's no fire in there when I know that there's smoke in there? Maybe that belief that there can't be fire in stone houses is wrong, and there is fire in there. You start to doubt yourself, question your belief. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's just a quick run through of that. We have some. I mean, I think you guys can read through this on your own. It's interesting. You might get questions from reading it. I hope. I hope you do read through it and you bring those questions either directly to a lecture or into the WhatsApp group. But for now, we're going to jump back to that other sheet, which was um, which we'll get into now. Okay, let me see if there's a question here. Let's take time for questions. Swagat, do you have any question about that yourself?
So I guess like one question that arises in my mind is that what if instead of doubting that perhaps stone houses may have fire inside them, what if I begin to doubt that what if it's not true that where there is smoke there is fire?
Right. So that's another possibility actually, right? So that's like we said before, this is all very dynamic. There's no, there's not only one way that um someone's mind will reason, right? That someone's mind will function. So what we could say is that that person, what we would say in sort of the technical language of the cognitive theory of Nalanda, is that that person had a mind, an awareness that had knowledge of the causal relation between fire and smoke. They had knowledge. This syllogism and this experience caused that knowledge to actually be lost. The power of their, what we call pramana, the knowledge they had, actually degenerated, and now they have a doubt about it. So they actually lost their knowledge that there's a causal relation between smoke and fire. Interesting, that can happen, isn't it? And that's similar, like if someone, for the Buddhists or the Buddhist interested people out there, you could maybe realize something like impermanence or emptiness, um, and then forget about it, or die and forget about it. Of course, we're keeping a broad mind that you can go on to future lifetimes. A lot of things you forget when you die, of course, as we all have that experience of not remembering things from our previous lives. So, right. So certainly, it's not. It's funny how knowledge works. It's very temperamental. Okay, so let's go to a couple questions that came in the chat, and also please raise your hand and we can take. Okay, there's a couple hands, but I'll do the questions in the chat first. What does the note mean on slide 4? These are not used in the Nalanda debate. So um, that means, because what was on slide 4, so these are numbered. Let me go up to the slide numbered 4. So this is something I didn't go over, but if you read, I would say, I don't want to get in too much into it because we didn't go over it, but basically there's two kinds of syllogism: straightforward syllogisms and consequential syllogisms. So we don't use straightforward syllogisms in the Nalanda debate in the sense that whenever we make a syllogism, we say take the subject X, it follows that it's Y because of Z, Z. But a straightforward, that's a consequential syllogism. That's that form. The form of a straightforward syllogism says, take the subject X, it is Y because it is Z. It doesn't use the language of it follows. It uses the language just simply it is or it has. So it's more straightforward. Okay, it's not pointing out an inconsistency in logic with with a consequence. Okay, that's the answer to that. And if that's not clear, please you can ask again. And Rashika asks, what if the fire has been extinguished and there is smoke? Would you still say it has fire? It could be incense. So Rashika may not have seen the example that Venerable Namjong posted in the WhatsApp group, but I noticed that he posted an example where, we're talking about someone smoking a cigarette and there's smoke in their mouth. So you say it follows that there's, fire in their mouth because there's smoke in their mouth. And so there you're just kind of missing the pervasion is simply that, if something has smoke, it has fire, but it doesn't have to be like located in the exact same spot, right? Like the precise exact same point. So likewise, if something has smoke, it necessarily has fire. That the meaning of that is there's a relation over time that something which has smoke was preceded by a fire, right? There was a preceding fire there. That's what it really means. A causal relation. Yeah, exactly. So there was a preceding fire in that place. So it doesn't have to be at the exact same moment. Actually, it never is, right? The smoke always comes after the fire. I mean, not never, right? Then there's going to be continuous flames and continuous smoke, but the smoke, that's, you know, yeah, the first moment of fire creates the first moment of smoke. The second moment, you know, which comes after the first moment of fire, so it's always behind. Okay, that's the idea there. Okay, now we're going to take questions. If there's any here, please come straight up to the stage. I don't know, it's hard for me to tell who has an actual question and who accidentally raised their hand, but I think maybe Ravi Kumar was first. Kumar, do you have a question? If not, then Shubangi. And if not Shubangi, then Farina. Farina has a real question, it looks like. Good.
Hi, Farina.
Oh, you're muted still there. Yeah, I know. Always forget.
Thank you. So again, thank you so much for organizing all of that, and I'm really, really grateful to all of you. I just haven't that it always, like in our debate, it sometimes happened that after we gave a thesis and the person said why, and then I said the opposite thesis, the person said again why, because they might think that they are instances where it's one and instances where it's the opposite. So it's difficult to accept it's either. So how do we go then? Like if
Yeah.
we two times have a y for the
So,
opposite thesis,
so
what
there
do
you
we
give
do
it
then?
sa, and then you give
Mm-hmm.
it sa, and then if they continue to do that, you just keep giving sa's until one of the two of you gets bored and changes and decides to pick a new answer. I mean, if they decide to pick a new answer, or you decide to change the subject and try something
Hmm.
else, right? I mean, you have to sort of play by the rules. I mean, and this is one of those things where, yeah, if you obviously you're not going to be able to actually carry on a debate if you do that. So that's one of the values of having to pick a position is that then you can
Mm-hmm.
actually carry on a debate. Then you can actually like, pry into it and probe the question instead of just say, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Then So you kind of have to take this kind of fake, confidence in a position. You know, even if you're not really sure, you just take an answer and see where it leads, right? You take a position and see where it leads.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for the question. That's an excellent question, and that also has, I think, come up several, or something like it has come up several times. Okay, no more
Yeah.
questions. Then we'll move
And
on.
also to add that um, I don't know if this is helpful, but in case it is, this is kind of the strength of pervasion statements over regular statements. For example, if I said that take a human being, it follows they are male, you know, you might say why? Because it's not necessary. And then if I say take a human being, it follows they're female, you might say why again? I might say non-binary, and you might say why for each of them, because there's no instead of doing this, you could try saying yes to one of them and just see where that takes you. It might take you to a different place than if I said, if someone is a human being, it follows they are necessarily non-binary in gender. So sometimes we just play with instances rather than the entire generality. So you could debate on an instance of a human being rather than all of human beings. I don't know if this is correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure, right, and right. No, I mean, there's again, it's very dynamic. So you have, limitless possibilities. Right. So I mean, I guess like Farina's kind of question, the I think an exact kind of illustration of what she was asking about would be where you say take the subject of human, it follows their male, and the defender responds why. And then the challenger says take the subject human, it follows they are not male, and the defender still
Hmm.
says why. If you go serially through all the different, like, I guess, um types of humans, they're follows the humans are male, why follows their female, why, that might all be, you could hold that position without contradicting yourself at least. But if you first say why to all, to humans are male, and then say why to humans are not male, you've just contradicted yourself already. So in that case, then you have to choose one and stick with it. So you'd have to say they're not, human is not male, or humans are not male, right? Now it's tricky because the English language makes this tricky where we don't need to go into detail about that, but anyway, it is a little challenging to think of it, but it's but you're right. Putting then into a statement of pervasion that can kind of open up these kind of like places where it seems like you're not going anywhere. That's a good strategy. Try then to just take away the thesis statement and bring in a statement of pervasion and see if that opens up. Or just posit, ask them to posit the joints. Can you posit the, it follows you can posit the difference between human and female, human and male, and then and that will help to move the debate along and get clearer about what you're talking about. Okay, so we are moving along, but still we don't have too much time. So let us then go to our exercise, and this will be fun, and everyone play along. I mean, we'll actually do this when you go and do your session. So, but now think of it. Think about what you might say. So I'll just make sure that we're all on the same page again, but I won't keep the screen share up. Maybe I will, because this one we're kind of looking at some of the specific words. So I will keep the screen share up actually. So here's the idea here is we have sort of a possible thought process for somebody where they're basically just using colloquial language to think about some topic. And there's a variety of different topics. Some of them maybe are true, some of them maybe are not true. The point here with the exercise is to just try and convert it into Nalanda debate language. So we're trying to convert these colloquial statements and sentiments into Nalanda debate language and see, and maybe from there we can actually debate some of it, right? Once you have a debate statement, either a syllogism, it could be a statement of pervasion, it could just be a thesis with just the subject and predicate, but we'll see what we get out of it. So Swagath, please help me out here. Let's take a look. You want to read the first one here? Read just what's written in there.
Okay, all right. Donyo, I think homeless people just don't deserve social services
Ah,
because they're just lazy.
what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, anyone
why?
can go out and get a job. Why should they be a drag on the rest of society? Just because they decided that they don't want to work? Why
Well,
should everyone pay to support them?
I mean, I mean, I well, I well, I don't actually know. So let's look at it and see if we can find a way to put this into logical, reason-based language. All right. So what do we have here? Do we have some statements of pervasion? Do we have any thesis statements? Do we have any three-part syllogisms? Let's see. Why should they be a drag on the rest of society just because they decided not to work? Anyone can go out and get a job. Okay. So what's one kind of pervasion going on in this thinking? If someone doesn't have a job, right? Someone's jobless. Let's see.
Mhm.
What are they necessarily?
It follows they are necessarily lazy
Lazy.
because if they were not lazy, they would have a job.
If they were not lazy, they would have a job. So if someone doesn't have or I guess someone is homeless, because it's really more specific than just without a job. If someone is homeless, they're necessarily lazy, right? Right? Okay. And if someone doesn't have a job, then they necessarily decided not to have a job, right? The last sentence there, because they decided not to work, right? So if someone isn't working, they necessarily decided not to work. Okay. And then with the first sentence, maybe we could just put that into a straightforward, just a three-part syllogism. Take the subject homeless people, follows they don't deserve social services because they're lazy. Because they're lazy. So let's actually debate it for a minute, Swagat. You want to be challenger or defender?
Sure, I'll be defender, you can be challenger.
Okay, I'll be challenger. And so you actually have to sort of at least, a little bit pretend to take the position of this sentiment. And
Yeah. As
and
unpleasant as it is, I will take this position.
okay, and I'll and I'll use and then Rashika sent a text or a message with a good example. They could be disabled, meaning as a reason for why they can't work, not laziness. So good. So let's see. So I got take the subject homeless people. It follows that they don't deserve social services.
I accept.
And it follows that they're just lazy.
I accept.
It follows they're lazy, right? So take the subject, a homeless person who's disabled. Oh, and then it follows that if someone doesn't have a job, they're necessarily, lazy and decided not to work.
I accept.
Right. Okay. So take the subject, a homeless, jobless person who's disabled, right? It follows that they're homeless.
I accept.
It follows they're jobless.
I accept.
It follows they're not jobless because they didn't decide to not have a job, to not work.
No pervasion.
Oh, so it follows if someone. Oh wait. No pervasion. So now I'm going to restate the pervasion because I think I jumped to the top just a little too early there. So please restate the pervasion.
So I'm saying that just because they didn't decide not to have a job, it does not mean they are not jobless.
Doesn't mean that they are not jobless, right? So if it follows that if someone didn't decide to not work, that they're not necessarily not jobless.
I accept.
Right. So it follows that. So now this kind of reversed because tried to use the consequence to pull out. So we got to kind of reverse it back to where we start. So it follows that so again, we have the subject, a disabled, homeless, jobless person. So what's true about them is that they didn't decide not to work, but they still are jobless, right? So then it follows that there is a jobless person who didn't decide to be jobless.
I
There exists a
accept.
jobless. So we can do that sometimes too, right? You can just say it follows there exists X, Y, Z, just to kind of make a kind of a clearer point about something, right? So that's what we're saying again, and this is now we're going into that pervasion. So it follows that if someone is jobless, it's not necessarily that they decided not to work. So that comes back to the original pervasion he accepted.
Hmm. All right, I accept.
Oh, there's the ta. So the first one was the negated version of that, and then we just switched it back to the unnegated, the positive version of it. It's a little confusing when you bring negation in, but that's one of the training, one of the factors that comes when we train. So good. So now we are able to say, so just that last sentence, just because they decided not to work, it's not, now we know it's not true, right? There are homeless, jobless people who didn't decide not to work, like the disabled. And thank you, Rashika, for that good example. They may lack qualifications, right? Which means maybe education. Maybe they didn't have a chance to get education. Can we say because they are addicted to intoxication? Sure, which we also would probably consider more like a, you know, psychological, a mental illness rather than just laziness. Right? Okay, so there's a lot of things we can explore there. Even the concept of laziness, right? I mean, it follows there's a person who is lazy. Can you pause it? And let me give you a statement of information. It follows if someone is a human being, they are necessarily not a lazy person.
Why?
Okay, so now posit an example. Someone who is a human being and a lazy person.
Mm, let's say, take the subject Swagath in the morning at 6 a.m. when he
Okay.
does not want to get out of bed.
Okay, take the subject Swagath in the morning at 6 a.m. when he does not want to get out of bed. It follows, well, sure, he's a human. Follows, he's a lazy person.
I accept.
Do you accept? Okay, so maybe at that time he's a lazy person because that was a very specific subject. So that was smart thinking. But let me take the subject Swagath, the whole of Swagath. Swagath. It follows he is a lazy person.
Why?
Why? Right. So when you see how when depending on the subject, right? The homeless person, right? Whoever, you know, whatever his want to put for the name there, Stephen, whatever, Stephen, the homeless person, you know, they, like Swagat, there might be an instance that we can find, Stephen at, you know, 6 a.m. in the morning after he's been, sleeping out in the freezing cold all night. Maybe he feels a little lazy, right? But to just say Stephen is lazy, it's just not really a tenable thesis, right? And we could obviously
Mhm.
pry apart that more, but Swagat was, reasonable enough to just recognize that it doesn't make sense. Okie dokie. Yes. Well, let's do one more together because we are running out of time, but it's nice to kind of show the example and then people can go and take it. Number two, I'll read that one and then we'll switch roles and you can do, well, we could just talk about it first, right? Before we debate it. I'm such a fool. I can't believe I said that. Oi, I'm such an idiot. Now they're all going to think I'm an idiot. Never ever have respect for me again. I can't show my face in this place again. Which is
Oh.
perhaps a feeling you've had if you're like me. Yes. Or at least with someone, maybe
Okay,
not a whole place. Okay, so what are we going to say are the debate statements that we can tease out of this? I mean, take the subject I mean, that's basically the subject,
mhm,
right? A fool. I follows I'm a fool because why? Um, I guess I said something. It's not specified, but
because I said something that I think people disagree with.
right, because I said something that I think people disagreed with or found stupid, found found
Mhm.
un, reasonable, whatever. Right. Okay, so there's a three-part syllogism, and
And
then
and and there's one more.
mhm.
There's one more that says, take take the subject I. It follows, people will never respect um, I, because they observed me in this instant behaving
Mm.
in a silly fashion.
Now, was there a pervasion there?
I might, in the throes of the incident, feel like yes.
Right, you might feel, I mean, we do feel like yes, and that's why it's nice to really tease it apart and use reasoning. But I mean, is that something like we just saw before with the example of smoke and fire? You have to be able to get this knowledge that there's a causal relation between smoke and fire to really prove that there's a pervasion. Can you really prove that there's a pervasion here? Anyone who heard me say that necessarily will never have respect for me again?
Mm-mm.
I mean, there's
I
so many.
cannot.
What if there's someone who like just like is like really likes you, doesn't care what you say. They just like they already decided you're really great and cool, and they don't even care, right? Like lots of people, I mean, like all the time. If you're attached to someone or you whatever, it's not attachment, but you just like them, then you ignore their faults, right? Or what if like you apologize and like realize, that you did, maybe it really was an unethical thing or something, and you apologize and they have respect for you again. Or what if you become a Buddha
Mhm.
in a few thousand years? Then they're gonna have respect for you, right? People have respect for the Buddha, you know. So it's not the case that they'll never have respect for you again. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Swagat. Are there any questions before we break out? Because I'm sorry, I just have to look at the time and we're running out of time. Yeah, so that's an overgeneralization. Thank you for pointing that out,
Mhm.
Belgian. Oh, I'm still sharing. Sorry, screen. Okay, so if there's no more questions, or doesn't look like there's any. Okay, you can run up to the stage if you have a question. Otherwise, we need to go practice. So we have a lot to practice. We have 4 days of like I don't know how many worksheets we even gave you guys. Like probably like 15 or 20 or something. At least 15, I think. So we we have a lot of material that we can work through, and this is just adding into the mix. So if you think this is really cool idea and you want to go and try this out, please do. If you're still like, wait a minute, I don't even really get what a three-part syllogism is and what, no pervasion means and reason not true means, then I think Joe is still offered to go and help with the basic like review of the basic way to answer in a debate. So that circle is going to be in the top right of the this monastery here, and so please go there if you want to review some of the last days. And yeah, otherwise you have this morning's drills with the joints. It's also a huge topic. I just want to remind people too, the joints, the first worksheet there was all just sort of general everyday objects, birds and animals and apples and whatever. The second sheet was objects from this outline that we're using of matter in the physical universe. And the third sheet is it's called tricky joint. So that really has really kind of deep philosophical questions going on in there. So if you got a little bit bored with the first sheet thinking, oh, this isn't really philosophically interesting, move on to the second and third sheets. Okay, so that I just want to point out that you don't forget about those. Okay, and so those are again, day 4.1 drills 2 and 3. Okay. Okay, and everybody break. There we go. Thank you, and we'll call you back a few minutes before the end of the session. Thank you, Swagat.
Thank you, Donyo. Pleasure as always.
Hello? Andreas, are you in search of a partner or you have...
Hi, Daniela.
Hey, Andreas, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for all of the work you're doing. It's really great.
Yes, no problem. I'm so happy that there are people who are, so many of you are really getting into this. And have you studied debate before?
No, it's my first
This
time.
is your very first introduction. So great. Yes, it's
Yeah,
very good that people are. I mean, I'm honestly impressed with how well people are keeping up. I know it's challenging though, so
yeah,
don't feel like it's weird if you don't get some things. There's things that take years to get, literally, um, for that, and that's for people debating every day. So yeah, it takes a
awesome,
while.
awesome.
So maybe you guys want to do some of the drills, and I can just kind of sit here and be. If you have any other questions, I can chime in, but I'll let you guys do the drills or the worksheets.
What worksheet are
So,
drills coming from?
what were we looking at? 4.1 drill 2.
4.1 drill 2. Okay, thank you.
I must just pull it up quickly. 4.1 drill 2.
Hi guys, is it fine if I join you?
Yes, please.
I would like to just listen to you because I missed the sessions today.
All right, sure. You're welcome to.
Thank
So,
you.
Rashika, are you willing to debate with me?
Sure. I'm just gonna pull up that sheet really quickly.
Yeah, I can share it too.
Give me one second.
Yeah, you have the share screen on. Maybe Rashika, you might need to click like the window that has the shared screen, and it will become bigger so you can
Oh,
see it.
okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
All right, so the instructions are the challenger will give two objects by saying it follows. You can posit the difference between a flower and form in terms of 3 joints, 4 joints, equivalence, and contradiction. The defender will accept. Challenger will reply, posit them. Defender will identify the joints, reasoning between the two objects. And then the challenger will then confirm the pervasions and ask the defender for examples. You can refer to the day 1 4.1 joints template to see how to do this.
Oh,
So I can.
yeah. I forgot you guys had one early this morning, so I might not be the best person. I didn't do the. I wasn't at the lecture, the first one, but I'm still willing to try. But I don't know if I'll be able to do that. Would
So
you
maybe
mind doing an example with someone else, and then I can follow suit?
I think both you and Rashika have said that you haven't attended lecture 1 today. So I'm thinking maybe.
I did attend lecture 1 partly, so this part, the lecture about this, I was
Okay.
observing, yeah. So I can
So
try.
I suggest you be the challenger.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead? Do you know what to do?
I think I do. Okay. It follows you can posit the difference between a flower pot
And
something that is established as particle-like or composed of particles in terms of 3 joints, 4 joints, equivalence, and contradiction.
I accept.
Posit them.
All right. So now I have to say I would say, what is 4 joints again? I would probably say 3 joints. 3 joints. 4 joints. 4 joints.
4 joints.
Okay, so now I don't know, Daniela, if you can help us, but I think you would say challenger will then confirm the pervasions.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So you
I-
say
I
it
accept.
follows right? It follows that if something is a flower, it's not necessarily something that is established as particle-like or composed of particles. Well, maybe the easiest way, we can do a condensed version of this. The condensed version is just to say, so then it follows there is something that is both a flower and something that is established as particle-like or composed of particles. There exists something, so that's joint one. There exists something which is a flower but is not established as particle-like or composed of particles. There exists something which is established as particle-like or composed of particles that is not a flower. And then there's something which is neither of those two. So that's 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4. So it follows that all those are there. That's how you can say it. And then give an example of each of them. We can kind of do it in a
Yeah.
condensed way. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if you
A
want to
short.
repeat that.
So you would
Ida, do
say,
you want to
right?
repeat that, or do you want me?
I think I'm a bit lost. I didn't follow much today, so maybe you need to find somebody else actually.
Well, you could also use the drills that are from just this session. That's maybe a little bit easier even, or from yesterday. You could also just change the drill you're using.
All right. So this is the drill from this session, right?
Yeah.
All right. Read through the following paragraphs and statements and try to ascertain the theses and pervasions that are being expressed by the colloquial statements. Then work with your partner to try and rephrase them in a language of Nalanda debate. So the first 2 we've done, correct?
I haven't done them, so
No, I mean they were done in the class.
in the class, okay.
By Donyo and Swagath.
Okay. Rashika, were you there?
So
Can you do this?
Sure, I can give it a try.
Perfect.
yeah, Rashika, you were the one giving the amazing questions and answers.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. Okay, look at how amazing the universe is. Its glory and beauty is not something that could have just randomly popped into existence. This is the proof that there must be a greater being behind it all, a perfect being who brought this wonderful creation into existence.
This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a heavy one. Let's see. Okay. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions. But so basically, I'm trying to say whether or not the thesis that it's come up with, the reason proves that, correct?
So I think what we're trying to do is, first of all, is identify the theses in here.
Okay. So the thesis is
And
take
there
the
might be multiple
subject.
theses.
So I'm guessing that the thesis is take the subject, the universe. It is glorious and beautiful because there must be a greater being behind it all. Was that correct?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I accept.
Awesome. Let's
Well,
see.
I would respond with why.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. If I'm going based off this statement and not what I believe, let's see. The reason is because something that is glorious and beautiful cannot randomly pop into existence. Therefore, there must be a perfect being who brought this wonderful creation into existence. Did I say that properly? I mean, I don't agree with that statement, but I guess if I'm following the logic of that, that would be kind of my rebuttal to why. Why there needs to be a greater being is because something as glorious and beautiful as this could not have just randomly popped into existence. Therefore, there must be a greater being behind it all. Does that sound right, or?
Yeah, I think it sounds right. I don't know if maybe it might be better if you be the defender and I'll be the challenger.
Okay, am I doing that bad of a job? Okay, let's see.
No, I'm not saying you're doing a bad job.
Well, that's you get the thinking right. It's I guess the trick is to try to use the language of take the subject, the
Yeah, that's
universe.
where
It follows that it's created by a perfect being because it is glory and glorious and beautiful. So
Gotcha.
just the subject, it follows because. That's the kind of language.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the language.
Okay, so that's the structure. So do you want to move on to the next one?
No, we need to finish this. This is a good one. So I'm just asking because you said this is not what you want, you believe. So
you can also
you
do
want
it
to defend
together, right? That you don't have to just be defender challenger. You guys can work together and work through it.
Okay. Okay. So I guess if, like I was saying, I don't necessarily believe this. Let's see. I'm trying to
Yeah,
posit.
but you need to take a position. You need to take a position now.
Okay.
So are you going to take this position or do you want to defend your belief?
Let me just think for a second, because I gotta have proof behind why I believe it. Let's see. Okay. I want to take a different stance on that.
So you want to defend?
Yes,
no.
I think
What do you want?
I'm answering it'd be reason not true is kind of my stance. So let me try to posit something to kind of help it make sense.
So then maybe
my apologies if I'm confusing you. I'm still trying to get a hang of the language.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start again. I will say, take the subject, this universe, this beautiful universe. It did not come into existence randomly.
Oh, okay. And I would say why?
Because because it was created by a being greater than it was because it was created by a greater being.
Okay, let's see. Let me think.
Or actually, I'm changing my response. I'll say because something as beautiful as this cannot just be random.
Okay, got you. That makes sense. Okay. Let's see.
It's not a bad reason, huh?
No, it's not a bad reason at all, but I was trying to think.
But do you want to say the reason's not true or no pervasion?
Okay, I say I'm thinking. Hold on, let's see. His reason was because a greater being. Okay, I'm thinking reason not true. Let's see. I'm thinking. Let me try to phrase it in the right way.
So if you so you as is reason not true, then take the subject,
mind and brain. They are contradictory because
Because they are distinct phenomena which have no common ground.
okay. It follows that if something is mind, it is necessarily not brain.
I accept.
It follows that if something is mind, if something is brain, it is necessarily not a mind.
I accept.
Now, is this over?
Because if it follows the yes.
Yeah, they say examples not needed for contradiction, but you may ask for them if you like.
Example of what?
Like if you want
Example
me
of
Example of something that is a mind and not a
not a
brain.
brain.
Yeah.
What would be an example?
Please
And
posit.
vice versa.
Yeah, please posit the example of something which is mind but not brain.
okay. Uh Example of which is of brain and not mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I said the other way around. Something which is mind but not brain.
Okay. I'd say though it's a very fine line, but I'll go with consciousness.
Consciousness. So
Yeah.
it follows that consciousness is mind. It follows that consciousness is mind.
I accept.
It follows that consciousness is not brain.
I accept.
Now I have to ask you, now we have seen this 8 doors of pervasion. Now, according to me, this, if I try it with has, if something has mind, can I go ahead with that?
Yes.
Uh, take something which has mind, it follows that it does not have brain.
I accept.
Okay, take something which has brain, it follows that it does not have mind.
I accept.
Please posit the example of something which has mind but does not have brain.
Um, uh, an AI robot.
Okay, AI robots. Okay, I don't know much about it.
A what?
Okay,
An AI
artificial
robot.
intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. Like
Robots.
if
An
I
AI
mean, like,
bot. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
bot. Yeah, yeah.
AI bot has mind. Okay, interesting.
Okay. Take AI bot. It follows that it has brain.
Uh, why?
Take AI robot. It follows that it has brain because it can think.
Um, no pervasion.
Please restate the pervasion.
It follows that if something can think, it necessarily does not have a brain.
Okay. Take AI robot. It follows that it has mind.
I accept.
Take AI robot. It follows that uh, it is consciousness.
Um, I accept.
Take AI robot. It follows that its consciousness is clear and knowing.
Pardon. I didn't. I can't hear you properly.
Take AI robot. AI bot. It follows that you agreed to the position that AI robot has mind. So take AI robot. It follows that its mind is clear and knowing.
Clear and
Knowing.
knowing.
Yeah, that is the definition of consciousness.
Uh, mm, Clear and knowing.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But I
uh,
think we don't have to go into all that. No?
okay,
We
okay,
should stop
okay.
because it's just a drill.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I suspect that without this template, I won't be able to do much.
But that's also fine, Shubangi, to go and start debating it. Really, that's up to you. So if you
Okay.
hear her posit an example that you don't agree with, then feel free to start questioning more.
Okay. Okay. So does anyone else want to do it in the group?
Yes. Priya,
is a flower pot.
I accept.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. We're going through this. Posit something that, posit an example of something that is neither something that is established as particle-like or composed of particles, nor a flower pot.
Not a pot or. Wow, this is complicated because we have to go in the realm of take the subject, horns of a rabbit.
Take the subject that is neither something nor a flower pot. Horns of a rabbit is neither something. Or consciousness.
Or consciousness, yes, sure.
Yeah, horns of a rabbit. Yeah, okay, I got it now. Or it could be sort of like a non-associated compositional factor. Anyway, that's okay. Don't.
It could be. I don't know, but this particle thing makes me think about matter, right?
Yeah, so it has to be matter.
Yeah. Horns of the rabbit, is I just get out of it.
Yeah, a permanent phenomena or something. Horns of a rabbit. Okay. Yes. Okay. Take the subject, the horns of a rabbit. Yeah. It follows that it is not something that is established as particle-like or composed of particles.
I accept.
Take the subject, horns of a rabbit. It follows it is not a flower pot.
I accept.
Okay. So what do we got next? Oh, that's it.
Yeah, we went through.
Because their shape is perfectly adapted to their environment.
Okay, so you gave a reason. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to think it through because.
That's fine.
So I would say reason not true. Now, do I need to tell you why the reason's not true? Or why I think that?
Unless I think I say, let me just go here. So if I check this, so you've said why.
Mm-hmm.
I've given you the reason.
Mm-hmm.
You've said reason not true.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to confirm your thinking.
So what was I missed? Did we ever identify what the confirm means?
No, we haven't. I don't think
Venerable,
so.
what does the confirm mean?
Confirm means to just ask you either yourself restate the reason, I mean the negated reason as the challenger, or you ask the defender to restate the reason that they negated. So just a simple example, because I didn't hear what you're using, but if you have the syllogism, take the subject, the color red, it follows it is matter because it is form, and the defender says reason not true. What is confirming? So two options. The challenger themselves can say, take the subject, the color red, it follows it is not form, to just make sure that you're getting on the same page. What did the challenger deny? What did the defender deny? The reason that form is matter. So now you put matter. Now you say not matter becomes your predicate. Take the subject, the color red. It follows it is not matter. Right. So that confirms that you're just confirming what they had said by saying the reason is not true. What is the meaning of the reason is not true? They don't accept that that the color red is matter. So you just confirm it.
Go ahead.
I would say to your response of reason not true, I would say take the birds on the Galapagos Island. They are perfectly shaped according to their environment because they have not adapted over centuries.
Let's see, because they have not adopted over centuries. Reason not true.
But you've just said the other reason's not true, so now you
give it
basically you're saying that the reason why they have perfectly shaped beaks is because of evolution, and then you're saying that they have perfectly shaped beaks not because of evolution. So I guess kind of the way my mind was thinking is they could have the species could have just been born with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that there was any sort of evolution or adaptation. So when you said it's not because of evolution, in my mind, I'm thinking that's not necessarily correct because it could be, but also the statement that it is because of evolution is also incorrect because it doesn't necessarily mean it's due to evolution, if that makes sense. So neither one of them is a complete true statement because there's the necessarily portion. It seems
I don't
like
think that,
I don't
think
this happens. Generally you would stick with the negative. If you don't think it's true completely, then you would deny it and just accept the denial. So instead of accepting it's due to evolution and also not due to evolution, because those two are directly contradictory, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
Evolution
my
and
mind was
not
thinking,
evolution are contradictory. So you would just accept it's not due to evolution as the more, just like when we say, take the subject human, it follows they're a woman. Well, there's no pervasion. There exist humans which are women, but we would just deny that and say human is not a woman. So
okay,
yeah.
so basically I would just accept the negated, the opposite.
You would accept. You would stick with reason not true for their. Yeah. So so when he goes on to ask, so take the subject, the birds. There, it follows that their beaks are not due to hundreds of generations of evolution. You would accept that now.
Gotcha. So he gave me the opposite of his first.
Yeah.
Okay. But so I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, is there ever a scenario where you don't accept the opposite? Because I'm thinking not even the opposite is completely true because it feels more like it's like a concrete, definite statement. It's definitely because they evolved that their beaks are shaped perfectly. That feels like a concrete answer that isn't right.
Right.
Then
Well,
also
that's why the negation is funny, because you're right about the affirmative. But when you negate it, it's a little different. It's not as concrete. So when you accept the affirmative, then it's definite. When you accept the negative, you're not denying any possibility. Just like, again, the example,